Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered Sports Edition. My name's Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Deadball, Masters of the Game. This is the latest release in the Deadball series from W.M. Akers. And basically, it's just a series of books like this one that each year, and this is year 6, is released and comes out with some new additions to the game, tweaking some things. There's also some supplements that come out. And he includes 2 versions of a fictional league that you can play. And there's a thing called 9-game pennant where you can actually kind of jump to the end of a pennant race and, finish out the season with 9 games, as you would guess from the title. But this one is a new one, and it adds some really interesting new wrinkles to the system. So this is an expansion for Deadball, which is the subtitle is Baseball with Dice. And it's a dice-based game for 1 or 2 players that uses real statistics to simulate a baseball game between teams from history, modern day, or your own imagination. There is a full system for generating fictional teams and players and everything. This particular update does require the second edition of the game, which I did videos on last year. I keep moving this around, losing my my camera. Because I don't like to, I don't typically put myself on camera. So I'm not used to manipulating things in front of the camera. I need to go more like this way, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it does require Deadball 2nd edition, which was released last year. I have, I think, 3 videos on that one. If you want to check that out, I do have a playthrough in there. So the game plays the same, but there are some really cool new wrinkles in this latest edition that I'm going to get to pretty soon. All you really need to play, pen and pencil, a piece of paper for a score sheet. And then there's a bunch of dice you need. So the game doesn't actually come with dice because all you really get is the book. And you can also just buy the digital version online as well and just print it yourself, use the PDF. It came out on Kickstarter. I backed it on Kickstarter, so I have the digital version and all the supplements in a digital format. And then I paid, basically printer cost essentially for the book. Here's the book once again. I paid printer's cost for this. It's really nice. It's about 90 pages long. And, there's some cool stuff in here. And we're going to kind of go through it and talk about what's actually in the book. But the game plays in about 30 minutes. And so let's take a look and talk about what is actually inside this new edition of the game and why it's called Masters of the Game. All right, so here we see it says, welcome to year 6, and kind of what I just went over. This is an expansion for Deadball, Baseball with Dice, dice-based game, etc., etc. It does require the 2nd edition of Deadball. And you'll also need the copies of the digital supplements, which are available on his website. Pen and pencil, a bunch of dice, D4, D6, D8, D12, D20, and D100. A love for baseball in about 30 minutes. So if you are new to Deadball, I suggest reading over the main rule book. Yes, you will need to get, if you do not have Deadball 2nd edition, you will need to get that for this to really make any sense. In theory, you could probably cobble together and play it based on just what's in this book because it does kind of go over the mechanics. But to really get the full-on experience, I would say pick it up. I mean, they're not expensive, and you can pick up the print and play version pretty cheap. So that's my recommendation, and that's obviously the recommendation of the author. But basically, it's a really simple. The core of the game is very simple. You roll D100 to get a swing score, and then the pitcher's pitch die is added to that to get a modified swing score. As you can see here, it's called the MSS. If your MSS is equal to or less than the batter's batter target, the batter gets a hit, and then you roll a D20 to find out what kind of hit it was. If it's between the BT, the batting target, and the on-base target, it's a walk. Anything higher and it's out. That's the basics. There are There are ways to get errors. There's all kinds of things that can happen. There's a bunch of different charts and everything you can roll on. It's fairly granular, but it maintains a relative simplicity that makes it probably one of, at least, it's either the number one or at worst number two favorite of mine in terms of a dice-based baseball game. History Maker Baseball is also a personal favorite. That's from Play Games. But I would play this over Stratomatic and everything. Now, again, some of that is going to come down to your own preferences. If you're looking for a hardcore replay type thing, this might not be your cup of tea. This is really good for fictional play, though. If you like fictional play, this system is simply fantastic, and this Masters of the Game add-on makes it even better. So you can see here, who are the masters of the game? You are. The expansion is all about the forces of money and power that have shaped baseball since its inception. So basically what this does is it brings finances into the game. And then you get, so it'll tell you how to build a franchise, essentially. So you have all the financial stuff for your club, and you'll have to pay your players and all that stuff. There's a system for all of that in the game now, which was not part of it before this year, but now he's added it, and it's an excellent addition. The other big addition for this is as it says here in Chapter 2, extends that story into the past. In the previous versions, the first 5, you basically had 2 eras. You had what he called the Ancient Era, which is basically the Deadball era, the eponymous Deadball era that the game itself is named for. And then the Modern Era, which is, roughly akin to today's baseball. Now he's filling in the gaps in between. So we've got everything from that Ancient Era, the Deadball era, all the way through today. So it's divided up into 8 separate eras, the 2 that were originally in the game plus 6 more. And so each one will have some unique rules and twists to make it feel like that particular period in baseball history. Obviously, if you are a baseball fan, you know the game has evolved greatly since it was first started. Even just looking at from 1901 through today, there have been vast sweeping changes, some done by rules, some done just, equipment, the athletes themselves. All these things have kind of played into the data that permeates everything these days has had a massive effect on the game and the way the game is played. So, they didn't have sabermetrics back in the 1920s. So nobody knew what Babe Ruth's WAR was or anything like that, or the FIP of Walter Johnson or anything like that. None of that stuff existed back then. So the game was played. Basically, it evolved. Obviously, Babe Ruth caused a revolution in home run hitting, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a baseball fan, you know all this stuff. But this new edition allows you to experience that if you want. So you can pick your favorite era of the game. If you love the 1950s and you want to play 50s style ball, you can do that. If you love the 70s and you want to play on AstroTurf and have speed be really important and all that stuff, you can do that too. It's really cool. So here's information on where you can get some more Deadball stuff on Reddit, on Board Game Geek. There's Discord, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got a Discord. He's got a Patreon. Obviously, you can support as you see fit. So here is kind of the new stuff. And I don't want to go into showing all the charts and everything. But you have team budgets, and so basically you roll for your team's wealth with a D20, as you can see. Then we would go and you can get bonuses based on your team's performance. Were you league champions? Were you runners up? Did you have some kind of statistical champion, etc.? Then you can have financial events. And there's a whole chart for financial events. There's a chart for ownership. There's a chart for spending money that will allow you to do things. So all of this stuff is things that you get to choose whether or not to do, essentially. I mean, the game's very open-ended. And Mr. Akers is really clear that you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. But he lays all these systems out for you to use them if you wish to do so. Then you have spending money. So you've got your budget and it's time to start spending. So if you're in debt, there's rules for that. You can hold some budget in reserve. Daring GMs may choose to empty the war chest at any time. Teams cannot spend themselves into negative budget. You can't spend money you don't have, right? That makes sense. So note that in this system, in the past, teams would get a top prospect and 2 farmhands. Instead, all 3 prospects are farmhands by default and must be elevated to the top prospect by using the scouting department. You can do this multiplayer. So if you wanted to have some buddies and make a league of your own and have everybody running a franchise, you can do that. And, then you get some competition in there because the game is very much a 2-player game that can be played solitaire. It's up to you. You're the master of the game, so to speak. And then at the end of the season, you can have a luxury tax, et cetera, et cetera. There's free agency if you want it. Player salaries. There's formulas for player salaries, formulas for contract demands, optional rules. So, it says students of baseball history will note it is anachronistic to speak of free agency in baseball before the mid-1970s, as until then the reserve clause bound players to teams so tightly that their choices when offered a contract were essentially to accept it or retire. So if you'd like to play as a truly vicious old-school baseball owner, dispense with free agency altogether. Assign players 1-year contracts based on what you think they're worth and cut them whenever you feel like. That is pretty much the way baseball worked up until the 70s. And he gives you a system here where you can roll a D20 and figure it out, what you want to do as far as an annual demand from your players. We got payrolls with salaries by era. So you have a league minimum, you have a scrub coefficient, and again, he discusses what all this means. Standard coefficient, star coefficient, and what dice you roll to build the contracts. And these are the errors, and you can see broadly the years that they cover. You have the first 20 years, basically the Deadball era, 20 to 40, which would be your Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, pre-war era, the wartime era, which was the war had a dramatic impact on baseball. That's a known fact. Aside from all the stars going, the quality of the game changed. The balls were made out of, I forget what it's called right now, but it wasn't rubber because they were using rubber for the war effort. So it became almost a second Deadball era, not quite to the extreme of the 1900 to 19 time frame, but still offense was down. Then you have your post-war boom in the 40s, late 40s through 62 when you get to expansion, and we have our expansion era. You have the kind of that 70s to 90, late 70s to the early 90s. Then you have the steroid era and the modern era. That's kind of the way it's broken out. You have payroll limits. You have weather, travel effects, stat trackers. So this is talking about the supplements. And so you have a stat tracker in here as well. The blank league spreadsheet. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is the blank league spreadsheet that comes with the game as part of the supplements. And so you have a standings tab where you can build your teams, and then you have a schedule tab where you can build a schedule. And he actually has in here team 3 at 5, team 2 at 6. So it's based on an 8-team league, which, for the first, up until 62, the teams from 1901 to 1962, both the American League and the National League, were 8-team circuits. So that covers that era. Obviously, we've now gone to the point where we have just as many expansion era seasons as we did pre-expansion seasons. So, but you can always adjust and add more teams if you wish to. But he does provide with a schedule here that you can use for all the series all the way through. Then we have team pages, and on the team pages, you can put things like your name, obviously, the owner, the manager, did he play, what style, his daring rating, his motto. You have wealth and budget, the abbreviation. Then you have your lineup, your bench, your starting pitching, your relievers, your prospects. And then you have aging roles. So this is very much a career thing where you can play season after season if you wish to. Again, very, very friendly for fictional solitaire play. Extremely friendly for that. You put your accounting stats in here. The game will calculate your batting average, on base percentage, OPS, etc., etc. Same thing for pitching and wins and saves and all that stuff. So that's pretty nice. And like I said, each one has this. And then at the back, you have pitchers and fielders, which will generate a list of all the players for each team. So these are our pitchers. These are our hitters or fielders. And again, it's going to pull in your starting team ones. Starting catcher will be here. And you'll see his batting target, his on-base target, any traits he may have, his age, and then statistical information. So this is a nice little supplement that's included with the game. Very nice to have. So going back over to the book, we have our eras of play, and so you have here again here's the list of the 8 eras that I kind of went over a little bit ago. So this is you have the ancient era, which is basically the Deadball era, 1900 to 19, the live ball era, or pre-war era as I might call it, the wartime era, the post-war era, the expansion era, the speed era, the steroid era, and the modern era. Now each era will come with its own quick reference available with the book's digital supplements. Again, I don't want to show the tables because that's what you get by buying the game. And I'm not trying to, make this so that you can play the game without buying the books. You need to buy the books and support the game. So, era to era, the game's flow doesn't change. You will always combine the batter's D100 with the pitch die to get your MSS, your modified swing score. You'll always check that on the swing result table. You'll always roll the hit die, or check the out table to learn what happens next. But on each quick reference, you'll find subtle changes reflecting the evolution of the game from ancient to modern. As cunning pitching gives way to power hitting, as rosters grow and rest increases, salaries rise, and stolen bases disappear. And then he says, as always, feel free to tweak these further until you've created precisely the era you want to play. So you have live, pitch, die, ancient, and here are the eras. And again, I'm not going to show all these tables because I don't want to do that, but it goes all the way through. And then you get to the 2 fictional leagues that are included with the system. It's called the Southern Circuit. It's a fictional league. It's co-ed, so there are women and men. You get a 2023 one with this year, and then going back, obviously the older versions would be previous years. So last year there was a 2022 and a 2021 before that, etc. going back. And I believe the first year of the Deadball era, which is all of these have teams in them. So you can see like the Charlottesville Flycatchers, and these are the teams with their batting targets, on base targets, their traits, and age, etc., etc. And then if we keep scrolling here, we get eventually to the 9-game pennant for 2023, and that's a game mode that's pretty interesting. You play basically these 3 series. And then we get to the Southern Circuit 1914. So if we count backwards, 1908, I believe, was the first year. 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13. I guess not. I guess it was 1909 was the first year. So we have 09 was the first year for the ancient era Southern Circuit, and now we have 1914. And there's he writes, he's an author in addition to, designing this game. So he's going to have some entertaining prose in here, some stories about the teams and the players, and it's very well realized, very well written, very immersive. So there's a full-blown fictional universe for you to get into if you buy the game, and if you get the previous versions, you've got now 6 years of history that you can kind of play through if you wish to do so. So there's a little bit about every team, specific players and the manager, and there's player managers and everything. And you can see that they have, It's co-ed, so you'll see some women in here, like Peg Deverich, Hot Dog Belanger. That's a great name. Papa Buccioni. There's some really cool names in here too. Sparatus Berrycloth. I mean, that's a great name. Just good stuff. I mean, really good stuff in here. Bubbles Little John, Magic McCrane. You can see the owner, and so on. The managers get a style and a daring rating, which will impact, doing things like going for extra bases and stealing and squeeze bunts and things of that nature. So, and then the 9-game pennant for 1914, which again has your series that you can play out. And then you have kind of like a Hall of Fame, essentially, the Ring of Honor. And every year, new players that are no longer part of the series will be honored by appearing in the Ring of Honor. And you could see that Beefsteak Atkins, former catcher, became a quack, which is funny. Cutman, trucker, painter, poet laureate, restaurateur. So, and then you have a list of the people that went in year 5 and so on. And then at the back, glossaries, tables, etc., etc. So if we go all the way back to the beginning, this has been Deadball Masters of the Game. It is a lot of fun. I will see if I can get around to maybe whipping up a team and discussing how you go about building your franchise and everything, again, without going into showing all the tables and everything. But just kind of an overall overview of the game. I think my review that I did for the second edition stands as is. There's nothing if anything, this Masters of the Game edition makes it even more worthwhile. If you're a baseball fan who likes tabletop baseball, this is an excellent choice to pick up, especially if you want to do something fictional. I think what this one and History Maker Baseball that I mentioned earlier have in common is they are both very, very fictional friendly. And if you know me at all and have watched the channel and have seen me talk about sports stuff before, you know that I am someone who enjoys fictional sports. I have my own fictional universe going on legendsport.com if you ever wanted to take a look at that. I'm doing some fictional stuff a little bit later on in history, 60s, 70s. Currently just started that, so there are a couple things that I have going on there. I played replay type stuff for years and years and years, and kind of feel like I've replayed as many things as I want to replay. So I've moved on to kind of trying to create my own stuff and be creative and build my own history. So that's going to do it. As always, thank you for watching. My name is Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered, the Sports Edition. And until next time, happy gaming.